tell you my pain.
Well, Dorian, thanks for being a guest again. Man, this is great to talk to you, dude.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So it's funny because you and I have been, well, especially for those who are listening, is that, you and I have been in touch for years, especially since, 2018, and been kind of communicating back and forth about our love for folk music. And it to me, it was such an interesting thing to see you go into, because coming out of Blues Pills, which was a very blues infused hard rock kind of thing, you came out of that, and then all of a sudden you're putting out Hungry Ghost, and I'm listening to it. I was mesmerized by it because, in history, not a lot of people leave bands and do something that is so different from what they did previously, So was this like a side of you that always existed and that kind of felt, I don't know, kind of trapped while you were in Blues Pills, or was it a whole new thing for you to discover?
It kind of developed along the Blues Pills journey. So It was like my first love of music was, I started listening to ZZ Top when I was a kid, and then Jimi Hendrix. And as a teenager, I wanted to play lead guitar and a bunch of solos and wah-wah. Then I started as a teenager also listening to Neil Young. So I got a Live at Massey Hall 1971 on CD, and I was blown away. So that kind of like started a love for more of a, that singer-songwriter and melodies and real songs instead of just jams and sometimes demonstrations, like on the technical abilities.
Right.
And then Neil Young was like just straight from the heart. So I was still into the blues rock thing, and I still love, 70s heavy music, but more and more I started to listen to Nick Drake, a bunch of stuff, Van Morrison also.
Yes.
So that kind of got me into less of a, there's not much many riffs in those records, but it's based on the songs and the, just like now when I listen to ZZ Top, I did this morning, actually, I still love it, but it's sometimes I think the lyrics are just not, it's always about getting, it's very simple when you're used to hearing Van Morrison and those kind of profound lyrics. So that's kind of like where why I got so deep in folk music, is that there's a real meaning that's beyond just showing off, that sometimes happens when you play rock and roll and you want to get laid and you're young. That was kind of like a side of me where I wanted to just express a bit more of an actual feeling, and also I had to let go of being the guy that just plays electric guitar. It was kind of like a mental thing for a while, as I was still playing in Blues Pills too. It felt strange to be putting out a record just acoustic and singing and just really different style, but it just felt like what I really wanted to express. Like if I didn't do it, I'd kind of be frustrated musically. So that was kind of like following the creative impulse.
Right.
And I'm glad that, you find it surprising, and people now, they talk to me about Nick Drake and other folk music, where back in the days, people always talk to me about heavy metal bands or Michael Schenker, as a Scorpions guitar players, and it's all great stuff. But it's great to I just got more into folk music, and it's also I like to talk about it, and it's a different crowd, you know, that listens to really stripped down acoustic guitar. So yeah, that's kind of how it went.
So I've always enjoyed, you know, folk music. I grew up in the 70s and in the 80s, you know, when I was younger, and my father, you know, I was surrounded by folk music as a kid. And my father was very much into Crosby, Stills and Nash and Buffy St. Marie and Joan Baez, Donovan, you know, Nick Drake, Phil Oakes, you know, like, so all these great folk singers. And, you know, as a kid, the last thing you want to do is listen to your parents' music, you know, because it's not cool to like what my parents like, you know. So I was a metalhead, you know, all the way through, you know, my adolescence and through high school. And then, you know, I played heavy metal, and, you know, in 94, things started to really change with heavy metal, and it went in this really bad direction to me. And so, you know, I go looking for something different. And so I'm like, you know, I'm going to listen to these folk records, you know, and just kind of see what's there. And I think for folk singers, one of the things I love, you know, especially from these artists, was that they can say so much, and it, like, lyrically heavier than some of the most heavy metal, you know, because it's very profound, and it's very, you know, sometimes even prophetic, you know, like, and the stories that are evoked through folk music, like, you're really forced to listen to it, because when it's just a guitar and a voice, or even if it's just guitar, voice, bass, and drums, you know, it's you're kind of not distracted by so many other instruments. And then you focus on the lyrics. And to me, that's where I could tell who was really good and who wasn't. You know what I mean? Because when you're listening to these lyrics, you're like, oh, wow, these guys are definitely better lyricists than Kiss, you know, or, you know, whatever, you know what I mean? And so it's, you know, it's this connection to the music. And, you know, and so it's to me, it's like you said, when you meet someone who's into it, you know, I always enjoy it when I can meet someone who's into heavy metal or whatever, but then also can appreciate, you know, folk music, because it's like you said, it's a completely different conversation. You know, it goes, you know, instead of like, oh, that riff is so heavy, or like, you know, that Iron Maiden song is 9 minutes long and it's so incredible, to, you know, picking apart David Crosby lyrics, you know, and being like, God, have you ever heard his song Lee Shore and how beautiful, you know? So it's a total different focus.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
So
I enjoy it. For me, it's like it's probably my sensitive side, you know, where it's like, whenever you're listening to Van Morrison, or, you know, with friends, and it's always a discussion that's about positive stuff, and it's, you know, songs about love and just deep things, and I can really relate to that. And it's the authentic kind of thing, as we were saying, you know, just guitar and vocals, and you can't hide behind 200 watts amps, you know, full blast. That's kind of like you know, it's you get to almost be naked when you play that kind of stuff, and it's a challenge that it's also really that is also rewarding. You know, sometimes people come up to me after shows, like really muscly dudes, and they're like, it takes balls to do what you just did, and that's like a big compliment, because I feel like the opposite. You know, I'm going up there playing soft chill out songs, and then, you know, so it's a whole different thing. And I still love rock and roll and all that stuff, you know, soul music also. So I listen to a bunch of different stuff, but when I write, like the way I can the best express myself is playing folk songs. It's just kind of like how it naturally goes whenever I want to be writing a song, because writing riffs, it happens kind of jamming and all that stuff, but you don't get the full picture of the song unless you have the melody and some words. And for me, it's easier through folk music because I don't have the voice of a rock and roll singer. Also, it just was more feeding to me.
It's interesting because I feel the same way. I've been playing folk music since 95 or so. And I've had a couple of bands since then that were still kind of like folk rock, roots rock kind of bands. But I don't have a rock voice or a voice that can, cut through, or that, like volume. When I was playing in my last band, that was something I could not get used. I was like, God, it's so loud. Why is it so, like I'm playing through a Blues Deluxe amplifier, my Telecasters, and through a PA with a bassist and I'm like, everything is so loud, and part of me really enjoyed it. But at the same time, I was like, I miss the kind of the sincerity and the simplicity of just me and my guitar, not having to feel the stress or of other music, because when you're playing that kind of music, people are focused in on you, and I've been more nervous playing in front of 20 people solo than I have been 100 people with a band.
Me too. That's exactly that. I've never been so nervous as some of the solo shows I've done. And with Blues Pills, we played for like up to 20,000 people. Yeah. So you'd think I'd be more nervous, but getting on stage, even if it's just 100 people, but just solo acoustic, when you get to deal with a lot more like psychological stuff, like overcome, just let go that, you can't hide behind anything. And if you're alone on stage, that's also more pressure because,
But it's also so cathartic at the end of it. Like I remember doing solo shows and I would be like emotionally exhausted, because, and even though there's like a level of, what's the word of, like energy, or like you get that adrenaline. It's not that same kind of adrenaline rush when you're going out to play with a band plugged in, because really it's like you said, it's kind of intimidating. And, the guy that you were talking about is right. I think it takes a lot more balls, so to speak, or that it's more to go out by yourself with a guitar. And not only when you're doing that, you're also sharing these songs that come from a completely different place. You're not writing songs to, to kind of go back to like Hungry Ghost. One of the things that I loved about that so much, well, first off, was that I was pissed because there was only 4 songs.
There's more to come.
I know. And, but, like Hungry Ghost, Need to Love. And actually Hello, My Friend was the one that really kind of cut me really deep in a good way. When you don't have those other instruments, when it's just, there's a vulnerability to it and you want to listen, there's a big difference between, like you said, like Neil Young at Massey Hall. There's a big difference between the version of Old Man on that one and then Old Man on Harvest. It's so much more painful and like vulnerable, and like,
and so I prefer the live version. Like, I've heard it the most too. For me, every song on the live at Massey Hall is better than the studio version, it seems.
Oh, I think it's the best to me. Like if I'm going to listen to Neil Young, that's the one I listen to.
And as you said, yeah, it can be almost painful, or I don't know what word you were saying, but it gets you, and it's not as much of a, you listen to it while you're doing other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It really cuts through something. And I heard it on the PA a couple of weeks ago. We were out on tour, so we were setting up a PA where we were staying, just listening to music, and we put on the whole live at Massey Hall. And by the end, I was kind of really getting emotional. Like, it really does something that other music and doesn't do. And sometimes if I'm like, more like I listen to heavy music, if I have that feeling, you want to get out something, but so that's less than songs like the ones on Live at Massey Hall. There's a bunch of other stuff. I got some records here, but that's a big one for me for sure, Neil Young. Thank you for what you were saying about Hungry Ghost, and it was really about that intimacy, or it's recorded live, just one microphone into tape, so there was really nothing. There's no metronome or stuff to twinkle around. It was just really straight. I was playing the songs, and that was it. And so it's got that authentic quality to it. So that's a good thing when I look back and listen, because it doesn't feel like it's been overthought. That's always the trap, I feel. Nowadays, people just overthink everything and overproduce after overthinking, and you end up with none of the original feeling. And that's probably why I love the live records so much. It's just we did I got a record that's going to be coming out. I don't know when, but we did it live. So that was I can hear that when I listen back. So the drums, keyboards, and acoustic was always tracked live. So that's it adds something. I feel more. It sounds more alive than when you do everything. What you can do with computers nowadays, and eventually take the vibe out of the equation, and you're left with no feeling anymore. It's kind of it's a big trap, I think, for that kind of music that we're doing, because it wasn't made in the computers back in the days.
So. It's really interesting because you can take technology, and because I've made all my albums on a computer, using software, because, I don't have the access or anything like that to using analog or whatever. But one of the things I discovered early on in doing this was that you can approach it in the same mindset and not overdo it. You keep it simple. Like I didn't put filters on anything. I didn't do it like everything I did. I kind of was like, when I was younger, there was a magazine that used to come out called Tape Op magazine.
Yeah, I know about Tape Op.
Yeah.
Great. And they have a podcast in it now.
Yes. And one of the things I remember reading, this was like around 2003, I think, which is kind of right around when digital recording, people were kind of starting to do it at home. They were kind of moving from 4 tracks to, and this specific article I read was this guy saying, that you can approach it with the same mentality as you would if you're doing analog. Like you use a condenser mic your guitar, play in a good room, track your vocal on a separate track if you want to, or just use 2 mics or whatever. And, we were talking, I think the word I was talking about, wasn't sure if you got, was vulnerability. And I think,
right.
And what I mean by that is that, you know, there's a feeling of being exposed and kind of being like letting your guard down, you know?
Yeah.
And so when I found recording solo, that, you know, even through the computer, if I just went straight in and left it alone, you could capture that. And I think one of the things that I tried to tell people a lot, especially some of my other musician friends, is I was like, you know, it's kind of like anything else. If you're going, just because you have a lot of toys doesn't mean you have to play with all of them.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, you know, you can go in and just be simple and be unique and be yourself and, you know, do your best to kind of capture that vibe. Because, you know, when you're playing to a click, when you're playing to things like that, it does kind of strip this feel from it.
For sure. Yeah.
It doesn't have that kind of like a natural flow. I mean, when we naturally pick up a guitar to play, like in our rooms, we don't play to a click track.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. Yeah. So
like, why would you do that for the sake of recording? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Is it because you're trying to perfect it or something? Like, I'd much rather hear, you know, like your album, which I thought, again, you know, going back to like Hungry Ghost, you know, great folk songwriter from the U.S. Her name's Dorothea Cottrell. You know, she sings for a doom band called Wind Hand. But then she put out this brilliant acoustic album that was like Buffy St. Marie. And it's like, it's got nothing but reverb on it. And it's so haunting, but it's got that flow. Yeah. You know? So with the new one, did you kind of go into it with that same mindset as you did Hungry Ghost? Or
yeah, except that there was musicians accompanying me. So it was mostly when we were tracking the record. It was we did live, me and two of my friends, they're brothers, in a band called Moondrag, which is a drums and organ duo. So it's it's really prog. They listen to you know, Tarkus, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I'm struggling to say names. You know, that kind of stuff. Atomic Roosters, that's something I love as well. And I get into the prog, really proggy stuff through them. But they also, you know, when we were practicing, we were listening to a lot of Crosby, Stills and Nash and Young, Deja Vu. It was kind of something that we all loved because, you know, everybody doesn't get into Nick Drake as easily sometimes as, you know, take steps. And also Pentangle, you know, the band with Bert Jansch and John Ranborn.
Oh, yes.
Pentangle, that was also a big influence when we were just arranging the songs, because they have a drummer and it's always acoustic based. So it was hard the thing was to find something that wouldn't take away the vibe of the song. It's kind of easy to ruin a folk song, I feel. You just add like a drum that doesn't add anything to the song. You know, it's such, going back to the vulnerability, it's like everything's got to be that way. So the two brothers, they really get into the songs, you know, the story of the songs. And so it's so we went into the studio after practicing, just the three of us, and we did everything live. Then we did some overdub with Mellotron, and I did the vocals overdubbing and the backing vocals. So that was so the main tracks are live, so there's no click and there's no overdubs on the acoustic that goes through the song. So that gives kind of a very alive feeling. Also, when we recorded it's 3 backing singers, all friends of mine. So that's also a cool thing. It was just going into the studio with all my friends, not finding people that just you know, are really good, but you don't know them. So then with the singers, they all were singing live also as we were tracking in the studio. You know, it was not like one voice after the other and then the other. So there's this. It's all kind of the mindset of doing it live as we would do in the room, and there was maybe a little bit more thought going into it than Hungry Ghost. Not thought, but just time to mature. I feel like I spend more time on the record to think through every lyrics. And when I was writing the Hungry Ghost EP, those songs really came through very quickly. So it's like every song was like written in the one go, and I wouldn't really edit. So there's some lyrics where even myself, I was like, I don't really know what this means, but it's just, it's you know, it just came through. So I just didn't want to, overthink it. But then on the record, I had more time to really just have each song has its own story kind of behind the lyrics that it's not always apparent, but to me there is a meaning behind every word. And I had a couple years to kind of let the songs mature. And just I wanted to, there's piano, Fender Rhodes, percussions, background singers. I didn't want to put too much, but for 10 songs, I didn't want to do just guitar and vocal. So I wanted just kind of have show what the songs can be. So it took, it takes that's really what's the main difference, because every person playing on the record brought their own energy to the recording. So that as opposed to Hungry Ghost was really just me and Zach from Blues Pills. We were, it was just the two of us. He was recording and I just played my songs. Yeah. And that was it. So getting other people to play instruments adds something, also a different color. And I like to do it both ways,
Well, I think what's cool about that too is that, you have your first, and like, to me, your first is always going to be your kind of, putting your foot in the water kind of, and you're kind of testing it, and not just for people who are listening, but for yourself, because, even for as long as I've been doing this, every time I have enough songs to record, my first thought is how is this going to feel? How am I going to feel about it when I've captured these songs and then I go back and listen to it? Am I going to still feel the same way? And, it sounds like obviously you've grown over the course of 4 years since the release. What can you tell me about some of the influence or like some of the inspirations for the songs? Because 4 years is a good chunk of time to live, so what were some of the influences for the songs? And if you can tell me maybe some song titles that maybe you didn't have before for the first group of songs that you had written.
Actually, yeah, there's it's different meaning. I'd say the overall vibe, it's kind of like the journey through the dark night of the soul,
Oh,
that's kind of like
tell me more. I like this. I like this.
So it's not just about getting laid.
Yeah. Or getting high and seeing dancing rabbits and stuff, But well, what is this? What is this dark journey? Like, where did it come from?
I guess it was kind of like what I was going through at the time. Just the transition between playing in Blues Pills for many years and having that comfort of just being able to leave from music. That was like amazing, and going away from that felt very scary. And at the same time, so I was ending a relationship that was very important to me. And so just my whole life changed very quickly. And I could feel that coming, I'd say about 6 months before it all kind of crumbled. So then that was the period I wrote most of those songs. So it was kind of like really reflecting on why I wasn't happy, even though I was basically living my dream. Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean by, the dark night of the soul. It's like your whole life as you have it just crumbles and falls apart. And you thought you were happy, but then there was something that's still missing, and you go through the loss and the pain of change. And so there's all of that in sort of, that's the theme of the overall album. And some of the songs are more positive, and some of the songs are more about, there's kind of a spiritual awakening happening also through the lyrics. So it's got that vibe. There's some songs about grief, losing friends. So that was just kind of like coming to term, like things I couldn't express just in the day-to-day world. Psychedelic experiences. There's a lot in there, that's inspired from those experiences. So it's like a mix of all that. Just, yeah. I don't know. I want to call the album. It's not mixed, so it could be called anything. It's not out yet, but there's a song on there called "Children of the Moon," and I feel like it's going to be the name of the record because it's kind of an easier song to get into, and there's kind of the moon is a feeling of the record. It's hard to, there's like a up in the cosmos kind of vibe on like at least half of the songs. So "Children of the Moon" is like kind of feels like a good way to put all those ideas into just one thing. And when I wrote that song, it kind of for me it's kind of about remembering the sacred in all of us. That's how so that basically when we're children, we're just happy and very connected to the earth and everything that's so it's kind of and then society kind of tells you what you should not do, and slowly things change. It's kind of remembering that that part of us, and so that's the meaning of that song. Now that I think about it, when after we made the record, it felt like half of the songs had that moon vibe, how to say, more airy and percussion instead of full drums. So there's like the side A of the record that's going to be kind of more, you can say it's kind of psychedelic folk, but people say, it gets you high naturally, basically. That's kind of what people, the reaction. So that's like the side A of the record, and that's more the moon, the sky, everything. And the side B is more, when we were recording, we were like joking, we're going to San Francisco. So it's kind of like more, there's organ and jamming. And so that's the sunny part of the record. So there's those two sides, light and dark, and moon and sun. Yeah. And that's
I love that.
So there's like a concept in a way, or like it's not just songs that I wrote. There's like so I'd like for the cover also to show the moon and the sun, all of that.
See, I love that because I feel like the older I get, the more I'm kind of drawn to the dark, and not in like a negative way, because there's this weird beauty about the dark, and about the dark side of things, or just like the dark mood of music. It's like, one of the things I loved is that, you could listen to things like, even within a band, like with, say like Crosby, Stills and Nash, like you can hear, Sweet Judy Blue Eyes and Teach Your Children, which are these beautiful, like you said, kind of San Francisco sunny songs. And then all of a sudden, David Crosby will come back with like Guinevere, which is, that doesn't echo sunshine and happiness to me. That echoes like this darkness and this whole different place. And I love that you said something about getting naturally high. One of the things I've done, I've always said with a lot of music I listen to, is that I know if an album is truly good, if when I'm listening to it, I feel like I go somewhere like with it, that it can kind of, that when I'm listening to it, nothing else exists.
Yeah, you get it. Yeah.
And that's not the case with a lot of music. But when that does happen, like that's a really special thing. And you can't try to do that. Like it has to happen like very naturally, And so did you go into it like intending for it to be like that? Or again, was it just kind of like, this is how the songs came out of you?
It was more the latter, how the songs came out of me. Because, it's more something I noticed as along this past year, where I've been recording and then playing those songs live lately. The musicians, the two brothers, that when we were practicing, that I saw that they were the songs were kind of just everybody that heard it said it was planant in French. I'm trying to translate that word. It's basically like when you're getting high. It's like everybody, it's kind of the feeling they were getting. They hear the songs, they're like, oh, it's relaxing. It like, I saw that they were taken on a journey that's basically where I was at when I was writing the songs. So it makes sense, but I didn't think it through that it would give people that experience. It's like, it was really rewarding lately that I did some shows where people were really getting into the songs. And so it was just me. I did also just really straight up unplugged. So there was no mic, no nothing. Just me, a guitar, and maybe 30 people. So it was like a small, really intimate, everybody closing their eyes through the entire set, and a lady crying. Just really, people afterwards were telling me stuff like, when they closed their eyes, they saw the cosmos and the plants, like, really trippy things actually were happening. And there was no drugs, just music. And so that's been really fun to see that people go on a journey with me, and with the songs. And everybody doesn't get it, but when they do, it's great. It's kind of it's a special thing. It's not about crowd surfing, like rock crowd mosh pits and all that. It's a different vibe. People, yeah.
Well, you did some shows after Hungry Ghost came out. Like, you did some pretty big shows opening for Miles Kennedy.
Yeah, the whole tour. Yeah, that was fun.
Which was, that's pretty fucking crazy, because those are some pretty big audiences. Well, how did you get connected with Miles? Because I heard Miles was quite a fan of your stuff.
Yeah, it was a friend, a mutual friend, Sharon. She's a booker in the UK. She used to book shows for Blues Pills, and she was booking that tour with Miles. And she called me up one day, and really out of the blue, as I was putting out Hungry Ghost, just before the release, she told me about the tour and if I wanted to open. So that was like really like Christmas Day. I was like blown away, and of course I said, yeah.
That's a pretty awesome first tour, man.
Yeah, that was awesome. And I learned a lot. And talk about being nervous for that first show, it was in Scotland, Edinburgh. And I was very nervous, so nervous that I had a natural vibrato, when singing, because I couldn't get my breath going normally.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it, right?
I never played I played a few shows acoustic, but I didn't have much experience as just a acoustic guitar and vocals. And right away, these were those sold out shows, big venues, and it was amazing. It's one of the best tours I've done because the vibe was just incredible. I learned a lot. The shows were great, and the whole team with Miles and everybody was so nice to me. Mm-hmm. It was so great.
So you said you learned a lot. What did you learn a lot? Business-wise, or more as a performer and how to handle the larger scale audiences, or was it both?
More as a performer, I would say. Just getting used to playing shows acoustic, and it was just way bigger venues that I ever played in that kind of for that kind of shows. So that really taught me, that if I up to this day, if I'm nervous for a gig, I think about, I opened for Miles in London in a huge theater where there's seats that were made for the Queen, It's like those old theaters. So I played a solo show in that theater and I made it, So then if I'm nervous for a tiny gig up down the street, I think about that and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be fine because, it's really that experience. And just being able to travel, we did a lot of European countries, a whole month European tour. And so experience and watching Miles every day, that taught me a lot because he's just the way he handles the crowd is amazing because he was part of the tour. He was doing just solo and then he had a rhythm section for some songs, but he could really handle keep the crowd entertained for 75 minutes straight and they wanted to hear more. It was really very good shows. And also the way that he is as a person. I really, he's so humble and kind. Just very, very nice to me, very supportive. And that was inspiring to see someone that he's the singer for Slash, very successful, and yet very down to earth. And we talked about spirituality, different kind of things. It was really easy to talk to and very kind. So that taught me a lot. Also just on the human level.
That's a great thing. Is that when you can connect with someone, especially if you're as folk singers, and you probably, obviously, I love that we can talk as folk singers because I totally understand the gig here. Is that as folk singers, a lot of times we don't have that opportunity to share a stage with, other acts, so to speak. Sometimes there might be like another local artist or something, and not that that's a bad thing, but you're kind of both on the same level. And so there's really not a whole lot to learn or to teach. But when you get to play with somebody who is very seasoned, and like you said, who is used to playing big crowds, it's amazing the things that you can learn. And this was probably maybe 13 years ago, maybe even 15 years ago. So I got to open for my biggest idol. My inspiration is a songwriter from here in Atlanta named Kevin Kinney.
All right. I haven't heard him. I got to check it out.
Well, we have plenty to swap here, man. Like,
for sure.
We're going to fill each other up with music here to listen to. Yeah. But he's like this little Southern guy, great storyteller, great singer. And I was playing with him in this really nice theater in South Carolina. I think there was about 300 people there. And
right.
I was sitting backstage and he came and sat next to me and was just talking to me. And he says, how are the shows going? How are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm doing good. I was like, I'm pretty nervous because tonight's going to be the biggest crowd I've ever played in front of. I said, and he was like, oh man, you'll do great. Just be yourself. And I said, I also have a gig tomorrow night. And I said, which will probably 10 people should be there. And he said, if that's the case, he goes, when you play to 10 people, play to those people like they're 100 people or like 1,000 people. He said, no matter how many people show up at your show, give them the same show that you're going to give 300 people tonight. And that was such a lesson to me, because I feel like as folk singers, it's easy to get discouraged when you show up at a show ready to play your heart out and there's 12 people sitting in chairs, 4 of them are on their phones, and instead of getting discouraged, I always remember what he told me. And so my goal is to get those 4 people off their phones.
Yeah, for sure.
To connect. So it's a pretty cool lesson when we can learn things from people like that,
Yeah.
So you were talking about touring, so are you going to be touring more for this album? I'm assuming you will. And if so, what's the tour going to be like? Is it going to be a pretty big tour, or is it going to be...
Right now it's just outside of France. This summer I have some shows in Germany. So it's a tour opening for Black River Delta. It's a Swedish band. They're a Swedish blues rock band, so that's going to be very fun. I'm going to be able to practice my Swedish a bit. Black River Delta, and we're playing, I think it's about 7 shows in Germany in May and a couple shows in September. And I have a festival also in Germany in July with The Wolf, the Dutch band, The Wolf.
Oh, yes, I do.
They're playing, and the Picture Books. So it's a cool lineup. I'm looking forward to that.
So what about the release of the album? When
That's
are we
yet
going to see that?
I'm not sure yet, because it's still not mixed. I'm just trying to figure out the way to go with labels, and it's basically that's taking time. So as soon I'm hoping for this year, hopefully just around after the summer or something. But it's still in the plans. I feel like, it's never been easy to approach record labels as musicians, but with COVID, it's just added an extra level of every band seems to be wanting to put out a record, and
because we have nothing else to do.
Exactly, they've had 2 years so it's a tricky time in the business, and it's just I've got it. The record is ready, so that's I just got to get it mixed. I don't have to. I'm out of the creative mind on that record. I started writing other songs, but it's good. So because it took me a few months at least of just constantly thinking about it, where I would not have been able to do much else. It's just a lot of heart going into the record, and that was when we were basically locked down. So that was a good time to just be able to focus fully on that. So hopefully it'll be coming out this year as soon as I get things sorted with the label. And it's getting close, but it always takes time, to just get the contracts, and then we'll have to get the album mixed. So that takes a little while. But so what you heard is what I sent you was just straight out of the unmixed what happened in the studio. So that will be polished.
Well, those are sacred to me, and so, but all I can tell you is I'm not a very patient person, so I'm going to be harassing the hell out of you for more songs.
All right, the final mixes.
For the final
I'm looking forward. I'm very looking forward to put out this record, because it's really, it just felt like something I wanted to do for a long time. And I don't know, because it was my first full length solo record. I put a lot of pressure on myself, and a lot of so it will feel very good to finally share it to the world. And meanwhile, I've been touring with a friend that's he's projecting documentaries. He makes documentaries, so we're touring around France, showing his documentaries, and then I'm playing the show. So
wow,
it's kind of a new concept, as all shows have been canceled lately, for this winter, and there you have to have the pass, and there's a bunch of restrictions. So we just started to do things at people's houses. We've played at like a yoga studio, different healing therapists, a lot of different therapists, because the documentaries are about natural healing remedies or shamanic initiations.
Oh yeah.
So it's also very fitting when, especially when people watch a documentary about shamanism, and then they can talk to my friend who made the documentary, ask questions, and they kind of started to get into that mindset of not very material things. And then I come and play those songs. Then that's when they really get into the mood. It's been very it's not sold out shows of thousands of people, but it's very beautiful experience that can only happen in a way when there's a limited number of people and everybody is in the same kind of get into that journey together of so people closing their eyes, letting go tears. It's been good. Just being able to play some shows.
But to me, those are the best, where it's, and it's funny because, again, as we get older and as we kind of progress in our creative lives, you kind of learn that, it's quality over quantity, like, what was it? This guy, Kevin Kenny, he always has the best quotes. And one of the things I remember him saying to me, he said two other things. One of them was, I'd rather play to 10 people who were listening than to 10,000 people where 10 were listening. I
agree with him for sure.
And another thing he always told me that I always connect with, he says, some of the best shows I've ever played were the ones that no one was there to see.
Yeah.
Like, I've played some of my favorite shows to 5 people. You know what I mean? And where, like, when you get done, you're like, if more people would have saw that would have been great. But, you just always have to play from your heart, give everyone who's listening to you your full attention, and pour out your soul. And like I said, you did that great with Hungry Ghost, and I can't wait to hear what you're going to do with this next album. And it's, I don't know, it's a real treat to be friends with you and to always connect. I feel like we could talk for like hours about this stuff.
For sure. Whenever I come to the US, I'll be sure to hit you up. We get a jam and listen to some music. That'd be fun.
I've got a big ass basement down here, man. Like, guitar. You see my guitars. It's seriously. Well, nice. I'll get some friends over. We'll have a little show on the back deck, man.
Sounds great. That sounds great.
But man, I'm gonna have to make sure I get you some music. Some like Kevin Kenny and some of this other stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we gotta.
Yeah. And please send me some stuff too, like especially some.
I'm looking
stuff
at
over there.
The records I've got here. I got Graham Nash. I don't know if you've heard that one.
Oh, I love
his solo records.
I saw him probably about 4 years ago here in Atlanta. And he did a solo tour that was just him. and a guy like that accompanied him on guitar, who was like an old friend of his. That
right. I've seen some live.
Like 60.
Yeah.
It was one of the best shows. And he told stories in between all the songs about what the songs were. And he played the song Cathedral. That was off of the Graham Nash, the Crosby Nash, what was it? The Crosby, Stills Nash album that came out like in 70 something.
Right.
He was talking about how he basically was just dropping acid, and he went into this church, and he was just so overcome by all the stained glass and the light, and I was like, you can't beat shows like that, where you get to hear that connection, Are you going to be telling a lot of stories in between songs and stuff?
It depends on the show, but lately when I've been telling more of the actual stories, between the songs, because I felt like the people were really receptive, and it kind of then it helps them get the song. I felt the difference. If I say a little bit about the song, what it's about, it felt like the people were getting more easily into it because they have, so I do it when I feel like, like it's the right thing to, you get to feel it. Feel the crowd. It's really spontaneous, depending on how the crowd feels,
how they react to it. Living in the South, so many, I think because I grew up in the South. I grew up in New Orleans, and then moved from New Orleans to Georgia, and so many of the singer-songwriters, the folk singers, everybody is a storyteller, and so the kind of lyrics and even sometimes the kind of music that comes out of this part of the country is so different from the folk music that, say, is, from the northern part of the US, or even like the West Coast, like San Francisco. Because there's something about
Tony Joe White,
Oh my God, he is one of my all-time favorites.
I've been going back into Tony Joe White stuff lately. Yeah, it's good.
As the Crow Flies. Oh my gosh.
Soul Francisco. I love that song.
That is so good. So I got to see him too a few times.
Me too. I saw him once.
He is so good. And it was so funny because I saw him here in I'm not holding you up too much, am I? By the way,
no.
Okay, this is kind of off the record, man. Like I'm gonna edit this. This is us just talking right now, but
sure.
He played here at Atlanta, and then the next night he was playing in Charlotte, and so after the show here in Atlanta, I got to meet him, because he came out after the show and was like signing autographs and stuff, and and everybody was kind of older than me, and I'm 48, man. Like, so at the time I was like 43, and so to be 43 and to be one of the youngest people in an audience kind of tells you, and when I went to go meet him, I kind of hung back because I wanted to be the last one, so I wouldn't be rushed. And I walked up and, he shook my hand and he's like, oh, I saw you out there singing all the songs, man. He goes, that's really cool. He has a very Southern accent.
Yeah.
And I had a Graveyard t-shirt on, and he looks at my t-shirt and he goes, Graveyard, man. Yeah, I can dig that. That's awesome. And I was just like, wow. I was like, okay. I was like, do you know? I said, I friends with a couple of people in a band from Sweden called Blues Pills, and I said, and they did a cover of one of your songs, Elements and things. And he like looked over at me and he goes, is that the band with the foxy little blonde girl that sings? And I was like,
shit. That's a crazy story, man.
And of course, and again, this is just between us. I'm not sure, but he's like, oh, is that the band with the foxy little blonde that sings that? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, yeah, Blues Pills. Yeah, I dig that, man.
That's so cool. Thanks for the story. That's that makes my day.
Oh, but he was so great.
Aware of us covering his song is actually crazy to think about, because he's basically for me, he's a legend among the legends, you know.
I mean, to me, he was he was a big influence. I even wrote a song for one of my albums about 12 years ago, where it was called "Another Rainy Night in Georgia" instead of "Rainy Night in Georgia," and it was inspired by listening to Tony Joe White, and I had given him a copy of that CD. And I didn't, and he was like, "Oh, thanks, man. I'll listen to this, and this is great. Thank you." And I was like, "Okay." I was like, "Well, maybe he won't, And then the next night I drove to Charlotte to see him in Charlotte. And he saw me after the show, and he goes, "You the Graveyard guy, the guy that was that Foxy Blonde." And I was like, "Well, I don't really know her." I was like, "But and he was like, "Yeah." He goes, "That's cool. It's cool that you drove all the way, up here to, see the show again." He goes, "Come on, have some good whiskey with me." And so he took me to this little back side stage room, and we had some whiskey. And he goes, "I listened to your album." He goes, "And I heard that song that you told me about." He goes, "That was cool." He's like,
"Right, wow."
He goes, "Your voice needs a little work, but it was good."
Well, that's a big compliment when it comes from Tony Joe White.
Oh, and when he passed away, I was so sad, but it was one of those things where I was like, wow, like what a great, moment. And I had totally forgot to tell you that Tony Joe White story the last time we talked. And I was like, I've been saving it. So I would tell you.
That's really crazy. I had no idea he was aware of our cover. And we actually went to the time I saw him, it was in London, and we went as the whole band to see him. Mm-hmm. And that was as far as I remember, it's the only show we all went, while on tour. We get the ticket last minute, like actually outside, because it was sold out. So we just showed up, bought tickets, however we could, and managed to get in. And it was in a church in London. I can't remember the name of the church, but just, really great place to have a show. And I remember I went to the bathroom, and there I heard his accent, I heard a voice that was like 2 octaves lower than, like 5 octaves lower than mine. And just unmistakable, you can't mistake the accent. So I just looked over on my way to the bathroom, and there he was just talking, with a glass of red wine. And so I didn't talk to him. I didn't want to, I was kind of shy. But I remember just his voice and seeing him, and I was just like, whoa, that's Tony Joe White. And then I went to the bathroom. But that's crazy. We were all at the show, we had no idea he would call Eileen the Foxy Blonde. Little did we know that he knew.
It was just so funny, because he was just very because when I said the name, he thought about it. He goes, "Oh, is that the one? Is that the band with the little Foxy Blonde that sings?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, because they did a good job."
Oh, that's great. Because actually, the producer, he didn't want us to do the song because he loved the original so much. He thought you can't cover something so great. So we almost didn't do it, because he showed us that song. Yeah. So we were in the studio probably tracking the first record, or maybe a bit later, probably the first record actually. And he played us that song. He had the record, his vinyl collection in the studio. And then we started covering it. But it's a very, I feel, that I've done something worth with my life if Tony Joe White heard a cover I was a part of and thought it was cool. That's just something that will keep me up for a while as far as continuing music as a path.
Well, I love that, because there really is nothing like, being acknowledged, by someone you really look up to, like this Kevin Kenny guy. When I had my band here in Atlanta called Collins Drive, probably about 6 years ago, just out of the blue, he had my phone number from when we first met, and I had never talked to him on the phone. I'd seen him at shows a bunch, and he just called me up one day, and he's like, he talked like this. He's like, "Hey Don, I heard your band. I think you guys are great. He goes, you should come play with me." And he had kind of like a show where it was like Kevin Kenny and Friends, where he had like 5 different acts, and we each played like 3 or 4 songs, and then he played like at the end. Right. And at the very end of the show, he called, like it was so unexpected. He called everybody from the bands up on stage to do his encore with him, which is his most popular song. And I was like, oh my God. And I knew the song, luckily I used to play it all the time. But when you get acknowledged by your people, especially songwriters like that, it keeps you going. Like it makes you feel like, okay, I'm on a good path.
That was the case with Miles Kennedy as well, when he was very very supportive and liking the songs and giving me compliments, and that gave me some confidence, which you need sometimes. I was especially with folk music. So when you get someone that really is one of your heroes that says, yeah, this is very good, it really it's a very great feeling, and that keeps you going. I remember the last show in London. That was one of the biggest shows, so that place where play a seat for the Queen and everything. Old theater, probably like 3,000 people.
Jesus Christ, man. So I would have peed myself.
It was the last show of the tour, so by then I was kind of used to playing bigger places. But I remember after the show I went for a smoke to kind of chill down, from the adrenaline of such a place. And so I was listening to music, chilling down, and taking probably for like 20 minutes, just getting back to when shows are so intense,
kind of come down back to your
But when I went backstage, and it's such huge places, so if you're backstage you have no idea what's going on in the theater room, but there was a speaker, so you could hear you could hear the show from the speakers. So I go backstage, and the second I enter the room, he's talking between 2 songs about how great the show, my show was, and just telling a bunch of compliments. So I'm just sitting there alone in my backstage room, hearing on speakers Miles talking about my show and being so kind and supportive, saying such nice things. That was a big moment for me, because it was even, more special that I was not in the actual place, that was happening. I just heard it through speakers, because there were speakers, it's a modern theater. They have all hooked up. But that was a moment where that was big for me. Yeah.
And he didn't have to say that, which just makes it even better, and where was that show at again? Where was that?
That was in London, the Palladium.
The Palladium. Yeah.
That theater.
Well, Dorian, it was great talking to you, man. As always, and
for sure. Yeah.
Let's not wait 4 years to do it again, man. Let's do it when the album comes out, and we'll definitely have some more to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds great. Thanks a lot. It feels great to talk to someone that gets it, and thank you.
Have you gone through your pain? Do you see